They tend to write, you know, with the bedroom door shut, but they've got that romantic kick, so you don't need the sensuality so much. So it really spans this enormous...
I picked up one of these Mills and Boon. I think it was, yeah, I mean, hot sheets. They really are hot.
They're kind of steamy, yeah.
Yeah. Turning, she gave him her back so he could see that shadowy, shimmery place between her thighs to best advantage.
That's our Blaze line. It's selling rather well, but for the 18 to 30 age group at the moment.
Oh, gosh. That's not what I expect from Mills and Boon.
No, we're an unexpected place.
Certainly are. And what about the survey that came out recently which said that women who read romantic novels actually have more sex than women who don't?
Well, that was fascinating, obviously, and I think it must be true because if you're reading the romance, if you're in that world so much, and it's so sexy and so sensual, and the tension between a couple is so high, that you're probably thinking about sex more and therefore doing it more, and more comfortable with your own sexuality as well.
As a woman who reads nothing but romantic fiction, would you say that was true?
You'd have to ask my boyfriend.
Well, no. Well, yeah, he's not here. I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'd say that was true.
Jolly good. Sex. Well, I knew we'd have to get around to it eventually. Personally, I'm a bedroom door closed kind of a girl, but I know there are other people who like things a little more explicit. But how tricky is it to write about sex? Who better to ask than the queen of the bunkbuster, Jenny Cooper?
Sex is very difficult to write, particularly as you get older, because one's experience gets further and further away. And also the terminology changes.
Yeah.
You know, thong, you see, thong, a Brazilian under my thong. I mean, it could be some wonderful Latin sort of man, couldn't it? With a whip. It doesn't mean that at all now, does it? And also because actually when you're having wonderful sex, you can't actually have a book to make notes in, can you? Because it would be rude.
I think if it's gratuitous, if it's too biological, and only one word amiss can ruin the whole thing. One throbbing member or
a bud.
Oh no. You see, you just... And the trouble is that your mood is so fragile. You're with it. You've suspended disbelief. You're with your characters. You really want them to get it on. But if the wrong sentence jars you, then that's it. The whole thing's ruined. It's very much like sex itself, you know. So less is more again, is my rule.
I think it is important to end with the bedroom door. I don't think it adds anything to the book whatsoever. And I think what goes on behind the bedroom door is so subjective to different people in different situations that once you go through that door, in a sense, I feel you sort of violate the sanctity of that situation.
A really good sex scene is one where the hero and the heroine do things within the privacy of their own room or wherever they are that reflect their character and also that really tell a bit more of the story, explain a bit more of their story to the reader.
You have to laugh at sex sometimes because it can't always be like an underwater ballet or something and everybody seamlessly flowing from one position to another. It just can't be like that. And in modern romantic fiction, you need a bit of realism and you definitely need comedy, I think.
The third bit I'm going to read for you is entitled Feathery Strokers, and it'll all become clear. Jackie's feathery stroker test is a horribly cruel assessment that she brings to bear on all men. It originated with some man she had slept with years ago. All night long, he'd run his hands up and down her body in the lightest feathery way, up her back, along her thighs, across her stomach, and before they had sex, he asked her gently if she was sure. It was a damning way to be categorised. Men who didn't eat red meat were feathery strokers. Men who used post-shave balm instead of slapping stinging aftershave onto their tender skin were feathery strokers. Men who noticed your shoes and handbags were feathery strokers, or jolly boys. Absolutely not, no.
I've realised that writing a romantic novel and getting the tone absolutely right is not as easy as it sounds. But if you do make a success of it, it must be incredibly rewarding to know that you're giving so much pleasure while at the same time making a packet. I went to the Cotswolds to join a housewife, a marketing executive, a civil servant and an artist on a writing course run by the romantic novelist Katie Ford.
Right, now we're going to discuss and try to define what a romantic novel is. Would anyone like to start the conversation? What do we think? Should we go around the room? Mary, how would you define a romantic novel?
A relationship
Yes.
between a man and a woman.
Yes, but anything else?
Conflict.
Yes.
Has to be conflict. And kissing.
Yes, definitely kissing. Strange romance with no kissing.
And then closing the bedroom door.
The important thing is the emotional response that you
Yes.
get from reading it, which is falling in love with the hero. It's identifying with the heroine. It's living their lives vicariously, whether or not it's having an affair.
Yes.
But I think it's the emotional
Yes.
attachment to
Yes,
it.
yes.
I think it has to be about longing and searching for something, searching, I suppose that's a sense of searching for your other half, but there has to be some sense that I suppose both characters are on a journey and at some point they're going to meet, or you hope they're going to meet, or maybe they don't meet, but there's this sense that there could be this terrific union that may or may not happen.
I think for me, really, it's a lot of escapism. It's about moments in time in other characters' lives that you relate to. And you just enjoy all the heightened emotions and tensions in that particular moment of time in their lives. But sometimes when I close books, I kind of imagine them going off into a humdrum existence then, because we've zoned in on a very exciting time in their lives.
Yeah.
That's right.
What do you feel, my dear?
I think for me, a good romance or romantic novel is when the relationship between the hero and the heroine changes them both in some way. So at the end, by the time they've got together, they're both different. They've perhaps learned something about
absolutely.
themselves. They've changed their perspective on life or their
Yes,
view, and
yes.
the relationship that they formed with the other person has been the catalyst to that change. That to me makes it a much more fulfilling read.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Now, I want you to write the first sort of encounter after the first meeting. So you could have reflections on the first meeting. You can think the first time she saw him, she thought he was just grumpy, bad-tempered, he's not particularly good-looking. But you're seeing different things. You're having your first impressions slightly challenged. This is the sort of the next step after the first meeting.
Reading romantic fiction, seeing romantic films, might encourage the person to start creating themselves, whether it's in the form of writing a journal, writing love letters, writing poetry. It shows that love doesn't just come out of the various experiences of disappointment and loss that we might have had in our lives, but that also you can do something with that romantic fiction doesn't come from a vacuum. It comes from certain experiences we've had, which we've done something to. We've actually taken pen to paper. We've done something with it. We've symbolised it. We've given a voice to what's happened to us. And however fantastical the fiction might be, at least it shows that we're doing something creative with the experiences that we've been through. That's an incredibly positive thing.
Well, it may be positive, but it's also incredibly difficult. It's worse than double maths. I now realise that romantic novelists earn every passion-drenched penny. So far, I've come up with a poetry-loving shepherd in a duffel coat and a ditzy Bridget Jones-like heroine. How do I get them together? And, worst of all, we're going to have to read these pieces out loud.
She glanced beyond the reporter and saw a Renaissance man in newly crumpled linen outfit. She saw his smile across the lawn. She responded involuntarily.
Taking the opportunity, she grabbed her wine glass and attempted to gulp back a large mouthful of Rioja to steady her nerves. Horrified, she looked down and watched in slow motion as a large red wine stain tracked down her bodice before coming to rest in a puddle on her lap.
How did you know that I find a blushing woman irresistible? Pippa tried to laugh it off. I bet you've practiced that line on your sheep, she said. But when she looked into his eyes, she didn't think it was funny. She looked away. She knew that any second things would change irrevocably between them. She was steeling herself to pull away when he grabbed her hand and pulled her into a doorway. There was barely room for the two of them, and she could feel the horn toggles of his blasted duffel coat digging into her hips and chest.